I welcome everybody for this last session of this 14th Special Steels Convention. As almost everybody knows that we start the conference generally with the panel discussions to set the tone of the conference. We had one panel discussion in the morning, but it was revolving around the steel fraternity, around green steel opportunities. Then we discussed about CBAM, which is being implemented by Eurozone, and we discussed the role of government in implementing the laws regarding the green steel and all that. So we discussed all that. Now we are coming down. We want to discuss about the forging industry. I feel that the forging industry is the one industry which is in between two giant industries. That one industry on the upstream industry is steel industry, and the downstream industry to forging industry is automotive industry. So I feel somehow when we were part of the steel, I was part of the steel industry. I used to feel that forging industry is somewhat sandwiched between the two giant industries. One is steel and one is automotive. So to steel forging industry is a very important link between these two industries, and it will remain so. So I thought that this may be a very apt point for discussion about the processing prospects, hurdles, and opportunities, new trends in about the forging industry. So we have this conceptualized this second panel discussion, and we have experts with us which will be contributing in the discussion. So I would like to welcome these experts. First, I would like to welcome Mr. Vivek Gupta from JSW. Welcome, Mr. Gupta. Mr. Vivek
Thank you,
Gupta
Chandekar ji.
having 32 years experience in the steel industry, worked with RINL, JSPL, Usha Martin, and now working in JSW as segment head for alloy steel. JSW is the largest alloy steel producer in India, having 2.5 million metric ton per annum of alloy capacity. JSW hold 1/3 of the Indian alloy steel production capacity, responsible for sales of 2.5 million metric tons per annum, wide exposure to long alloy products. Thanks, Mr. Vivek Gupta, for sparing your time, and I'm sure your insights will help the industry. Then we will welcome. I would like to welcome Mr. Javalekar. Mr. Javalekar is BE Metallurgy from College of Engineering, Pune, and Mr. is a seasoned metallurgist and entrepreneur with over 3 decades of experience in the manufacturing industry. After graduating from the prestigious college COEP in 1987 with a degree in metallurgy, he began his professional journey with Bajaj Auto as a graduate engineer trainee, and now he is under dynamic leadership. SB Engineers has grown into a trusted name in the field of forgings and machine components, catering to a diverse industrial climate. And Mr. Javalekar is also the chairman of Indian Foundryman's Institute, Maharashtra chapter. So thank you very much, Mr. Javalekar, for being with us. And I would really like to ask you about the state of the forging industry. You are also a forger, so you can tell us better. Thank you very much.
Welcome. Thank you, Danish. Greetings from AIFI and SB to Steelworld and all the delegates today. Thank you.
Yes. And I would also like to welcome Mr. Shekhar Dongade. He is the owner of SS Enterprises. He is B Mechanical from, again, COEP, your college only, Mr. Javalekar. MBA Marketing from IMDR Pune, ICWA. He is total having 47 years of experience in the field of forgings, castings, and machining components. He has been in Bharat Forge, BCL Group. In BCL Group, he was there for 28 years. Of his 13 years, he was there as managing director. I have personally dealt with Mr. Shekhar Dongade when I was selling steel to him. So, and now he is corporate management consultancy, corporate planning and finalization of business strategies, implementations of best shop floor practices, waste elimination and efficiency improvement, quantity and quality tracking of outputs in the departments of organizations, KRA finalization of the employees, and various other consultancy services he is engaged into. So thank you very much, Mr. Shekhar, for sparing your time, and we will
Thank you.
discuss the problems and prospects about the forging industry. And I would like to start with Mr. Javalekar. Mr. Javalekar, you have been running a forging unit. You
Yes.
have been you are the chairman of Maharashtra chapter of Forging Association, National Forging Association. So, how do you look at the industry? How is the industry? Is it booming? Is it growing? It is stagnated. It is worried. What is your opening remarks? Of course, I will ask opening remarks to everybody, but starting with you.
Yeah. Nanaji, thank you very much for inviting me once again. Yes, as you just mentioned, the last year for the forging industry was average, if you ask me, compared to the previous year. And this quarter, yes, it seems to be a bit promising with a slight increase in schedules. So hopefully we see a good schedules at the rate of say 10 to 12%, at least for the first quarter.
Okay. So that's okay. So your opening comment is that forging industry is going steady, growing, or what is that?
Yeah, it's quite steady if you ask me, though it was flat last year, but I don't see anyone to complain about it.
Okay, and I mentioned in my opening comment that forging is one industry which is sandwiched between two giant industries. How
Yeah,
do you respond to this?
rightly said. Yes, we are at the mercy of both of them, and of course, Vivek ji is here. I have always advocated to all the steel mills when I have a dialogue with them that they should have a policy to keep a pricing fixed for at least a year. Of course, between the steel mills and the OEMs, so that there is some stability in the market.
Okay, thank you very much for your opening comments. I would now go to Mr. Vivek for his opening comment. And what do you think? Mr. Javalekar says you keep your prices steady for 1 year. Is it possible?
Chandekar ji, first of all, thanks for calling me on this forum, and I would say this, the forging industry, basically, there are two segments. One segment is which is heavily dependent on the local automobile industry, like forging industry, who are the vendors to domestic two-wheeler market, OEs, or the domestic passenger car market. They are pretty stable. That business, I would say, especially two-wheelers, the business is you cannot compare to those beautiful figures of 1819, FY 1819, which was the peak year of Indian automobile industry. But yes, on a comparative basis, the figures are improving, I would say, and business is pretty stable, as Javalekar has said. Now, other portion of the forging industry is the big forgers, people like Bharat Forge. Now, they are dependent, a major portion of their business in some cases to the extent of 55 to 60% is dependent on export. Now, there the situation is extremely difficult, I would say. Today only I was talking one of the MD of one of the big forging company, and he has been in US for last 10 days, meeting all his customers who in turn supply to Ford and GM in US. And there's a total chaos because of the tariff barriers.
I know.
90 days reprieve have come. So he says,
yeah.
boss, for 90 days reprieve. I told him, boss, abhi 90 दिन तक तो कुछ नहीं है ना, 90 दिन तक तो माल भेजो. Well, boss, still 10% duty is there, and my buyer, they have told me to reduce the price at 5%. They said 5% we'll absorb, 5% you will absorb. Now that gentleman, he says, boss, I am absorbing 5%. Now at least 2.5% you absorb. as a steel supplier. So he says 2.5% at least. Now, for an average selling price of, let us say, 60,000 rupees, now 10% means 6,000. 3,000 this gentleman is absorbing. He expects his supplier to absorb at least 1,500 rupees a ton out of that. So for those big forgers, situation is extremely difficult.
Yes.
Nobody knows what is going to happen. On one side, we say that, okay, the business will come. Other side, he says, and in fact, 2 days back, I was in Punjab again. I was in touch. I was meeting all the MDs of the big forging unit and even GNA also. I was with this, the owner also. I had a lunch with him. So he says कि विवेक जी आप समझिए I made the statement just जैसे कहते हैं ना blind fake ना discussion करना है आप जब बैठे हैं आप बड़े लोगों के साथ कुछ तो आपको बोलना पड़ेगा खाना खा रहे हैं तो मैं बोला सर जो है वहां तो कॉस्ट बढ़ जाएगा डोमेस्टिक जो अमेरिकन पॉपुलेशन है उसके लिए हर चीज महंगी हो जाएगी इट विल कॉस्टली ही सेज प्लीज अंडरस्टैंड दैट इज अ सैचुरेटेड सोसाइटी दे आर दैट्स अ पुश सोसाइटी दैट इज नॉट अ पुल सोसाइटी लाइक अर्थ हमारे यहाँ देयर इज एस्पिरेशन somebody who is using an alto who wants to move up the channel he wants to buy a Desire person in Desire wants a Honda City so there's a pull but that's a push society. So people are holding on to the purchases. They are not willing to pay the cost of those tariff barrier, whatever the Trump may say. And exactly the same sentiment was echoed by this gentleman to whom I spoke today morning. He says there the GM and Ford has said, come what may, we cannot increase the price. So what is the cost of tariff that the supplier has to bear somehow? Now, you see, on one hand, the expectation is that you reduce the prices. For a steel company, they have to buy everything in cash. Today I buy my iron ore. Nobody is going to give me credit, na? Usko to site LC चाहिए. कोयला NMDC से लेते हैं, वो एडवांस लेता है. ऑस्ट्रेलिया से खरीद के लाते हैं, वो बोलता है साइट LC दो. आयरन ओर के लिए कोयला खरीद के लाते हैं इंडोनेशिया से, उसको साइट LC चाहिए. और हमारा ऑटो वाला बोलता है कि बॉस मैं तो 90 दिन में पेमेंट दूंगा. तो वर्किंग कैपिटल कहां से लाए आज जो 2.5 लाख करोड़ के टर्नओवर को चलाने के लिए? ये बताओ.
आप लोग फिर भी बड़ी कंपनी है, बड़ी इंडस्ट्री है. आप लोग बड़ी इंडस्ट्री है, ये ऑटो वाले बड़े इंडस्ट्री है, ये फोर्जिंग वाले क्या करें?
बॉस देखो
वो तो बेचारे वही
प्लीज अंडरस्टैंड इट इज नॉट द क्वेश्चन ऑफ साइज. योर एक्सपेंसेस आर commensurate to your size. If we are a big company, we need more money. Our expenses are like that.
I know.
You know, a small company will have the expenses as per their size. So it is irrespective of the size. The question here is, in such a fluctuating situation, how can steel industry keep a price line fixed for a period of 12 months or say 6 months or even 3 months? In any case, 6 months तो हो ही जाता है ऑटो का जो सेटलमेंट है, that is on 6 monthly basis.
Yes.
And many times they squeeze us out and they roll over another further 3 months, so it becomes 9 month basis practically. That happens. And बात वही है. And you know, it is not the question of a forger getting sandwiched between the two giants. It is all the 3 people who are getting sandwiched with each other. Situation is same. The forger gets sandwiched, the steel supplier gets sandwiched, and you know, when pushed to wall and steel companies, they raise their hand, then the OE gets sandwiched.
The final consumer purchaser of the automobile is sandwiching all of them.
Purchaser को तो छोड़ दो, purchaser को तो हमारा कोई सोचता नहीं है. वो तो स्टील कंपनी निकाल देगी 5% मारुति ने कार की प्राइस बढ़ा दी है या 2 व्हीलर की 3% बढ़ गई है और पीछे से वो रिडक्शन ले लेगा. तो in the whole scenario, if you analyze the balance sheet of auto companies, that is the only thing which is improving. Otherwise, I won't say that forgers in between are making money. Forgers are not making money. They are making the money to keep them afloat, to meet out their expenses and to have I would say a reasonable EBITDA earnings. That is, they are able to do. It is not that they are making filthy money. You look at us, you will say, boss, you look at your balance sheet, you make ton loads of money. You know, everybody would say, we make that money not out of auto. We make out of commodity. Had been a standalone company, we would have been also in trouble. That money comes from commodity, not from auto industry.
Not from special steels.
Yes. Auto,
Okay.
I would say it's a good industry. It's a technologically advanced industry. It gives employment. It contributes to more than 50% of the GDP. Everything is there. But that is not an industry where you make a very handsome profits. You make decent earnings, I would say.
Actually, that is true for the whole steel industry. I don't see
Yes.
steel industry
And,
favorite of any investor anytime.
and steel is so capital intensive industry.
Yes, yes,
And then with the CBAM coming in Europe, that is another headache.
yes.
So they want to keep the environment clean. For that, they
How
are.
far- But how far they will be successful, sir? Their own condition is so bad. Can they implement all
You
this?
see, it is like they will say we will not buy. Then what to do? And this is happening. My customers like Schaeffler, who are Europeans, who are Germans. My many customers to whom we supply in Europe, that indirectly, they are coming. They say, "Okay, boss, what is your plans for that?" So as a group, we have plans for green energy. We want the target is to reduce emissions by 2030, and by 2050, JSW Group as such, we are carbon neutral company. Having said that, that path is an expensive path. We need to spend money, and that money, I don't think we are going to get back from the market.
Right, right. That's
We have to spend that money to be in business, because we are in this business. We have to spend that money. So that is so situation for big forging industry is, I would say, is not very promising as we speak. For the part of the industry which is heavily dependent on local auto industries, I would say it's pretty stable.
And thank you for your opening comment, Mr. Vivek. Now I would go to Mr. Shekhar. Shekhar, you are seeing both the industries or all the three industries, I would say, automobile, steel, forging. You have yourself a consultant to a lot of forging companies. How do you see the situation?
Uh, Good afternoon, everybody. See, yes, of course, I had an opportunity to work in the small as well as big industries. And also, as a consultant, I have been dealing with many of the forging companies who are small, medium, as well as big. As Vivek was telling, every company has got its own problems, whether you are small, medium, or big. To a certain extent, some people have problem of liquidity, some people have problem of input cost, and some have the problem of the scalability. In short, see, people, whenever they talk forging, first thing comes to your mind is the automobile industry. Because whether you like it or not, 60-70% of the forging components are meant for automobile industry. But still balance 30% are non-automotive. And due to this continuously recessionary cycles coming into the automobile industry, the people over the years now have changed from not putting all the eggs in one basket, so they are moving into the various other industries also, maybe off-highway, maybe construction industry, maybe material handling, maybe oil and gas, maybe power, maybe aerospace, defense, railways. There are so many industries in which now people are started thinking. Same thing after 1991, when the globalization started, people who were totally dependent on the domestic industry started moving out. And there are people like Bharat Forge who may be having 50-55% as exports. But there are many companies who are having fairly good about anything between 5% to 25% of their turnover as exports. So this is what is happening. And India has also been now considered not only the country of elephants, but yes, it is a country where the technologically upgraded products also can be supplied at a competitive rates and at the global standards of quality. So challenges are there. If these are the only opening remarks, I just want to say only this much, that yes, there are challenges, but finally forging industry is not an industry which we can generate our own demand. We are dependent on the demand of the the OEMs or the tier 1 or the tier 2 people. So as the fortunes move up those industries, our fortunes also will move. And of course, now the Trump effect is one big question for the entire world. So that only time will tell what happens.
Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Shekhar, for your opening comments. Mr. Vivek, you were mentioning about the tariffs and the big forging units which are involved in exports and all that. Do you think that the tariff, which is more for China and less for us, will make some difference? Will make our our components, auto components or forgings more attractive price-wise? Do you think so? I would
You see,
like to ask this question to you also and to Mr. Javalekar also. Yeah, Mr. Vivek first.
yeah. Chandekar ji, you see, of course, if you look at the mathematical part of it,
Yeah.
Getting a component from a country with 26% of tariff barrier and importing a component from a country having 246% of tariff
Yes.
barrier.
Yes.
Obviously, we are better, you
Hmm.
know. But the question, please understand, the question here is that whether it is 246% or 26%, who is going to bear that cost? Americans do not want to bear that cost. That is the problem. The American public. Who has to bear that cost? That cost has to be, in any case, whether you like it, you don't like it, ultimately that would be shared primarily by the component supplier and in turn by his raw material supplier. That proportion may be 50-50, that may be 75-25, nobody knows because 90 days the price have come. It is going to have an effect on the raw material prices, which the component manufacturer is sourcing ultimately. Okay. And you see, the another problem is if that happens. Now, for example, we as a steel supplier, we supply to Javalekar Saab's company also. We supply to them also as engineers. On and off, they keep buying from us. For example, let us say they negotiate some prices with their buyer in US. And per force, they have to give him a, he settles down with, okay, say 13% his buyer absorbs, 13% he absorbs. With that 13%, he comes back to us and says कि विवेक जी कुछ तो आपको एब्जॉर्ब करना पड़ेगा, आपको इसमें से पूरा हम भी नहीं कर सकते, कुछ सेटलमेंट होता है. लेट अस हाइपोथेटिकली हम कहते हैं कि ठीक है बहुत 7.5 करते हैं, 7.6 करते हैं. अब इसका इफेक्ट क्या है? इसका इफेक्ट आएगा, वी हैव अ म्यूचुअल फ्रेंड हुज नेम इज टाटा मोटर्स लिमिटेड, which basically controls the forging and steel prices supplied to the OEs in this country. What they settle gets settled in the industry.
Yeah.
So if the steel industry, that tariff is to some point, some extent gets absorbed by the raw material supplier, steel supplier, they will say कि बॉस तुम प्राइस कम करो, तुम वहां तो तुम कम कर रहे हो,
मेरे को भी कम दे प्राइस में दे दो,
मेरे को क्यों नहीं कम कर रहे हो? डेट में तुम्हारे पास मार्जिन है ना उतने एब्जॉर्ब करने का, तो तुम मेरे को भी कम करो.
यस.
तो ईबिटा आपका 7% से वो मार खा गया.
हो गया.
ठीक है.
करेक्ट.
बैलेंस शीट में से 2-2.5 हजार करोड़ हमारा उड़ गया. एक झटके में.
सही बात. जावलेकर साहब, आपका क्या ये है? What is your feeling?
Well, if you ask me, we certainly had a advantage over China because there are a lot of opportunities coming to India with China +1 policy adopted by US and Europe. But with this current scenario, everything has been skewed up. There were hopes that if you take a case of Tesla Motors, they were importing something 25 million USD worth goods from China, which they had, they were going to stop from 2025, and it was expected that such businesses would come to India. But with this Trump effect, I am really not sure what is going to happen, because before anything gets decided, he goes back one step, as he has hit a pause button for 90 days. Now it has become more chaotic for forgers as well as the buyer overseas, what to do about it. Now they are grappling with the situation, like they are trying to renegotiate the cost, whether it can be absorbed, like Vivek ji said, that case to case, it all depends. But according to me, this is going to hamper or create more chaos for the export market overall in India.
Okay.
And plus, Chandekar ji,
what is your opinion?
One point I would like to add here is only one thing.
Hello.
There is a fear of imports from China. Because
Right.
China has got no surplus.
I'm coming to that, sir. I will ask. I have that question in mind. So before that, I would like to have Mr. Shekhar's opinion
Yeah, please.
on this subject.
See, as everybody says that the problem is going to be between the supplier and the customer. So it is an individual to individual basis. American government wants only the tariffs for their own cash flow. So that is 100% taken. Now, if you see the margins which are there in the the balance sheets of all the companies, whether you take it forgers, and you leave it slightly Bharat Forge, because I have been analyzing the balance sheets of all the forging companies. See, that is my job. Now, if you see that some niche companies, if you leave it, maximum 80-90% of the forging companies are operating between the margins of 10 to 12%. Now, if that 10 to 12% margin, if they are operating, and if you have to share even this, one more confusion is that, this pause button has been there for 90 days and only 10% duty. But then there was a clarification given even by Ernst and Youngs also that for steel, aluminum, as well as steel products, for which the forgings also are coming, that 25% stays. There is no change in that. That means the pause button is not for the steel products or the aluminum, because those were given not on 2nd April, but those were implemented on 12th of March and 26th of March.
Yes.
So if you are talking about 25%, no matter how much you share between the supplier and the customer, because American government is not going to intervene in that, what are you going to do? Even your customer, means if you think, from our side that we feel that the customer also in US should, absorb something. Now, I don't think, if you have analyzed certain balance sheets of the good companies in US also, they don't work on these margins. There are so many companies because they work on the volumes. There are so many big companies, they are in the single digit margins. But even if the single digit margins, their volumes are maybe 100 times, maybe 200 times of Indian companies. And that is how they make the money. So only, even if somebody is making a single digit margin, in which way he is going to absorb? So it is like Sunil is telling, it is a big chaos. We really do not know what's going to happen. Because neither supplier is going to absorb that much, nor customer is in a position to absorb that much. And Mr. Trump is very adamant on this. So it's a real problem.
My next question to all of you is, first of all, I don't think the volume of exports of forging to US is that much, number one. And number two, if it is very small margin, is China a big player in that?
I'm just giving you the, overall, if you see the industry, like at present, India total manufacturing of forgings is about 2.2 million tons.
Okay.
The world production is about 27 million tons. Say India is about 8%.
Okay.
China is about 11 million tons. So they are almost 5.5 times of India. Or if you see of the world, then they are probably about 30-40% of the world production. We are talking about what will happen to 2030, because everywhere these things are going up. If you see the today's production or today's value of business of forging industry in terms of value, the overall world requires about 81 billion USD is the requirement of forgings, of which India is about 8 billions and China is about 33 billion. From this, if you are talking of the near future, which is say around 2030, the projections, which of course every government which they have given it, world production will go from 81 billion to 158 billion. So that is almost increased by about 80-90%. Now, where this big chunk is going to be captured by? We were hoping that this 8 billion will go to 17 billion, which India wanted to increase it by more than 100%. China, of course, has not indicated any volumes where they would like to go because they never publish any data. The question how it was that 8 billion was to go to 17 billion USD in India was because that in India GDP, the services is about 56%, agriculture is 17%, and manufacturing is 18%. Now, as it is, India is thinking that 18% manufacturing GDP, they would like to increase it to 26%. So one is, and that too on a 5 trillion economy. Now, on a 5 trillion economy, and that also as a percentage of GDP, if you want to increase from 18 to 26, it's a very, very sizable chunk. So going from 8 billion to 17 billion, and with this sort of a thing, so everything was going okay. Means people were thinking about China plus one. That was mainly because of COVID or the rising cost of energy as well as labor going in China. They were talking about Europe plus one because of the very heavy price of energy in Europe. So everything was going in that direction. This, what has happened after 20th of January when Mr. Trump has taken over, everything, all the calculations, all the mathematics has gone for a toss. To such an extent that you see that so many positive things that happened after 20th of January, that the budget was good. Every industrialist felt that the budget is very good. There were two major elections which were won by the ruling party, whether it was Bombay or whether it was Delhi. There are so many good things happening even in the budget they had declared, and we were thinking that the market will boom. Exactly the other way it happened. So even the global thing, like you were telling, Mr. Chandekar, is that our export is hardly 3% of our total export to US. But that is not the question. The question is the overall perception of the global thing. Right start from 91, we wanted to go towards globalization. Now Mr. Trump wants it exactly 180 degrees out of phase. He wants to have a localization. So
Deglobalization.
everybody will start talking about the localizations now. So this is the perception change of the world. So it is not the direct impact of US. It is going to be the indirect impact on the world that is going to bother us more.
Mr. Vivek, what do you think?
No, I agree with him. You see, because all of us are basically, all four of us are of the same generation. And when we were studying in colleges, we were taught of globalization and removal of trade barriers, tariff barriers, all those beautiful, wonderful things we have read. And I think 20, 30, 30, 35 years we have practiced that and worked on that. And now suddenly, all the barriers are back in business. It's localization. You have to look into yourself to increase your consumption, basically. Now, if like what China has done, it's an economy that you leave aside the forging part of it. But as such, if you see on an overall basis, their population is their strength. What they produce, they consume within themselves. And for India also, ultimately, their population will become its strength. They'll start consuming. It's such a big economy. If we leave aside the forging part. But yes, the forging part, trouble is going to be there for exports. It's not going to grow. We are in some serious trouble. Plus, import from China are going to increase. As of today, if we see the steel import from China, it is not coming much. It is coming through FTA countries. But with so much of production, China is going to drop the prices. You see, there was a talk of 12% safeguard duty. What China did, they dropped the prices by 12%. The safeguard duty has not come, but they dropped the prices by 12%. Because their way of, calculating the cost and everything, how do they do the mathematics is altogether different than the capitalistic world, basically. So I think they are tough. I personally feel that to go this year, at least for another 6 months, 180 days is going to be tough. There will be a lot of chaos, no clarity, what is to happen. There will be a lot of pressure on pricing, on the forgers, on the industry.
Vivek ji, you were mentioning about the imports from China. Taking that point further, okay, before we move further, I would like to welcome Mr. Udayan Pathak. He was there. Mr. Udayan?
We don't see
Udayan, he had just peeped in. Anyway, so taking that point further, see, our economy is basically domestic consumption driven economy. As I mentioned earlier, we hardly, our export component is very less. In forging also it is less. So basically the forging market is our domestic auto and other industries. So in that case, do you think that there is a big threat from China for import of forgings?
100%. Because that is what will happen.
Mr. Shekhar?
Yes. Definitely. See, China's total pricing works on a different formula. Because of what sort of a subsidy they get it for the basic inputs of the cost that nobody knows.
Okay.
When we were talking about even this Trump effect, certain components which were coming from China, you can't even buy steel in those prices.
Yes.
And that sort of components they were actually dumping it in India. Now, one more thing in India, for this anti-dumping duty to get implemented, you have to go through such a procedure. Mr. Vivek ji knows it much better than us, but it is a hell of a job. And they will compensate their manufacturers to any extent. So this problem is going to persist. And the FTA is another problem. India is already having FTA with so many other countries. So FTA route is always there. Even if you try to do something with China, they will have it through the FTA. So from the FTA route also it will start coming.
FTA through other countries.
Other countries, correct.
Yes. What do you think, Mr. Javalekar? Do you feel threat? Do you feel
Yeah, I
that?
agree with both of them. As you also said that yeah, India is a self-sustained economy.
Yeah.
But with the growing capacities, especially to talk about the forging industry, with the growing capacities, we were really gearing up for a good share in the exports also. But with this effect, there might be a reverse effect in India too. With the capacity spare, there might be a cost cutting amongst us to have a better share of business. So we have to just keep the fingers crossed and see how this goes on. As I was speaking about the Indian economy as such, it is really poised for a good growth, but we have to really wait and watch how it goes about. Because I had seen one prediction that with a 5 million car scenario or the vehicle scenario, we are poised to grow to a figure of 25 million by 2047. So it was said that whatever capacities, even Shekhar had mentioned in one of our AIFI meetings, that whatever capacities the forgers are going to add up now should be overbooked within next 3 to 5 years. But now I think we are just going in a dark tunnel with no sight. We have to just wait and watch to see how the things turn out to be.
And how big is the threat from China?
From China, yes, as Shekhar mentioned, it is going to be there through other routes, what he just said. And yes, I agree with Shekhar that we just cannot match the prices from China. I had some inquiries from Europe, but they want to buy from India, but at the China price, which is just not possible.
See, Chandekar, that is another big problem. These Europeans, they want Chinese prices and Japanese quality.
Yeah.
They want Japanese quality at Chinese prices. That is another big problem with them.
Mr. Dongade, Shekhar, taking that point seriously, why can't we match Chinese quality and price?
See, quality-wise, I can always...
I can match quality, I know. Why can't we match prices, Chinese prices?
See, pricing, if you see that depending on the component to component, anything between 50% to 65% is your steel price.
Okay.
Where we have hardly anything to do. Another 7% to 11% is the cost of energy.
Okay.
There also, of course, the renewable has now come to some rescue, but otherwise hardly any control, because whether you require furnace oil or you require gas or you require...
Costing में मार कहाँ खाते हैं हम लोग?
तो costing में वही बोला ना, अगर ये all the prices of steel and energy itself is about 70-72%, balance इसमें अपना है क्या? एक तो labor cost है, interest cost है. These are the things. The interest is, again, we are mainly dependent on India only. There are very few people who can have the ECB route or a direct, access to the foreign finance. But when I am talking about the forging industry, I am talking about 70-80% of the small people who do not have access to the foreign funds. So those people, where do they go? So they have to do in their consumable pricings only, or whatever margins they have to compromise in that. So where is the scope?
No, I'm not saying scope. I'm saying हम लोग कहाँ मार खाते हैं? मतलब I talked to one or two forging auto component people, my friends. They are making auto component. They say at हम लोग का जो रॉ मटेरियल प्राइस है उसमें वो फिनिश प्राइस का कंपोनेंट देते हैं.
होता है ना.
Why is that difference? Our steel price is more, or our energy cost is more. What is more? Where are we lagging?
No, I'll tell you also. I had also gone a number of times to China also and just tried to find out that how do they match those prices. Now the steel price, what they get it actually, it is highly subsidized. Because nobody knows that what sort of a subsidy the Chinese government gives from one industry to the other industry. It is just an unknown fact. Nobody knows this. Otherwise, it is not possible for them also. They had a hell lot of incentives, of export incentives earlier. Now those are abolished. But they had so many export incentives, and that is how they used to match. In India, if we have to be competitive, no doubt the productivity has to be increased. No doubt there has to be some sort of a low-cost automation, because still the labor cost in India as compared to the world is less. And I am not talking about the fully automatic or those plants which are only Bharat Forge can afford, or maybe another 2, 3, 4, 5 people can afford. But when bulk of the people can have low-cost automation, they can have some sort of a cost-cutting measures, and they also will try, like everybody has to try their own ways of getting steel. They are trying to get the steel at a competitive rates from even non-Indian sources. They are compelled to. Because what is to be done? Because there will be dumping like forging components from China, either through FTA or anything. The same thing is therefore going to be for steel also, which we actually mentioned that. So we may have to, we'll be forced to do that. What else you can do?
Let's ask Sunil ji. Sunil ji, you must have done exhaustive costing. Where are we lagging?
See, basically, productivity wise, yes, what we are producing here is a mix sort of component baggage what we have. Whereas China, there are dedicated lines for each components. I had visited China some 15 years back, and what I had seen over there, that one industry who is making connecting rod or crankshaft, they are only doing that. So they are able to optimize in the yield. They are able to have a better productivity. They are also able to have a low cost automation, as they are having dedicated lines for the same component of the same type. Whereas over here we have a lot of a mixed sort of a baggage. So that is one area where I see the major difference. Productivity wise, what I saw that our rate of production is at par with them. They are not having a labor that who could give really very good productivity as such. But yes, as Shekhar rightly said, that we did compare the steel prices when I'd been there, and the steel prices itself, whether it is subsidized or they are getting at that rate, I don't know. But the steel pricing itself was less by 40%, 15 years back.
Sir, in this situation, Mr. Vivek, what is your perception? After that,
Chandekar ji, just give me 1 minute, important call. Just give me
no
1
problem. No problem. No, so what I'm saying then, in that case, how would you fight Chinese imports now? Mr.
Government
Shekhar,
only has to do. I'll tell you something. Government only
how
has
are
to
we
do it.
going to fight Chinese imports?
There has to be a help from government, no doubt about it, because government was telling. In fact, this question was asked to the government when we were discussing about this 12% safeguard duty, which was to come into effect.
Okay.
And even through ASPA, or there are many other organizations through which they are trying to increase this to 20% or 25%. Now the question here remains that implementation of those safeguard duties, and in spite of that also, how does it get stopped? Government was telling that they will have a different methods by which, by tracking how much steel is coming or how much the steel products are coming, either directly from China or through the FTA countries. That is what they said. But just by telling this in one sentence, and actually that implementation, it's a big, one has to only wait and watch. But a lot of dumping will happen. 100% it will happen.
Mr. Vivek, what is your perception? If it is the threat is for forging, it is not only for forging, it is for steel as well. So what is your perception? How are we going to stop these imports from China?
You see, the problem, that's my strictly personal opinion, is to a great extent. Am I audible?
Yeah.
To a great extent, the government is responsible for the state of Indian industry, the high prices. Look at the oil, where the crude has gone. The industry still pays the same price. The interest rate for the industry, I think they're the highest in the world. Royalty on the raw material, the coal mines, iron ore mines, which have been auctioned, the royalty goes to the government. The input costs have gone up. So there's no structured effort from the government side to bring down the raw material prices, which in turn leads to the reduction in the finished goods prices. And then we say that we put up the safeguard duty so that we protect these artificially jacked up prices, the revenue goes to the government. That therein lies the problem. The industry is competitive. There is no, maybe in terms of the productivity, maybe slightly on the lower side, but okay, that we make up by the low cost of the labor. The quality is excellent. There are no doubts about the quality. Otherwise, nobody would buy Indian forging. But the inherent cost structure is like that. You cannot beat it. You have to bring down the inherent cost structure. You have to revise it. You have to, putting up a safeguard duty is a temporary measure. Ultimately, what is going to happen? You put up a safeguard duty, your prices remains high in the domestic market. Ultimately, the consumer will pay. The consumer will buy a high-priced car. He will pay more excise duty to the government of India. The government of India has taken the royalty. Government of India has taken the excise. Government of India has taken the money on crude, petroleum refining. Then they take out on the taxes on the vehicle. Therein lies the basic problems. Dumping is going to happen. Now, China is going to come in a strong way. You cannot avoid it. We have to be prepared for that. Don't
What is
expect
the
that government of
solution?
India to
What
put
is the
up
solution?
100% safeguard duty.
That is a solution. But you said that is a temporary solution.
Safeguard duty is a temporary solution. For long-term effect, you want to be $1 trillion economy, $5 trillion economy, you have to be cost competitive. And cost competitive, you cannot expect only the industry to reduce the prices. We just cannot expect the industry become, you call a meeting and then you say the industry is not competitive, the industry. There is a structural problem to the whole thing, please understand. What is happening in the whole of the environment? Are we getting new engineers in the forging industry? Is a 22-year boy who passes out of engineering colleges want to come to a forging industry? Tell us.
Nobody wants to come to shop floor. Forget
Nobody wants to come to the shop floor. No? Nobody wants to stand in front of hammer. You know why?
For that matter, furnace also.
For that matter, furnace also. Because there's a structural problem where engineering has lost its relevance of that profession. It's still supposed to be a difficult profession, point number one. It is supposed to be a hardcore technical, I am saying. The mechanical, metallurgy, these branches.
Yes.
And it is supposed to be a low-paying profession because the industry in which he goes will not pay him that much of money. And why the industry cannot pay him? Because industry themselves are not making that kind of money.
I know.
Their profitability is very low. They are already working on wafer thin margin. So the whole problem is very complex. It is not structurally being, looked into. It's a typical Indian knee-jerk reactions. कि बॉस वहां हो गया है, नहीं आ रहा है, ठीक है, मर गए, जी गए, सेफगार्ड ड्यूटी लगा दो, सेफगार्ड ड्यूटी लग जाएगी, प्राइस नहीं गिरेगी, कंपटीशन नहीं आएगा. Because heart of heart we know, because we cannot, government of India knows that my industry cannot face competition because of me. It is not because of the inefficiencies of the industry. It is because of something structurally wrong with the whole system. That's the point.
Mr. Shekhar, structurally wrong with our industry.
Whole system, not the industry, whole system.
System.
System, of course, what Vivek ji is telling that I partly agree to it. Yes, whether it is the interest cost or whether it is so many things which are in the hands of the government and if they are not doing it. But any government coming into the center, whether it is BJP or Congress or any third party also, I don't think that we are expecting anything better from them. So this is going to be, it is going to stay. The question is that, in fact, I would like the answer even from Mr. Vivek. And Mr. Vivek, I am not asking this question on behalf of any particular forging company as such. But when we are talking about the structural problem of the entire supplier chain and how do we compete it in the world, I just wanted to ask one thing is that, like, we were talking about the cost of production of steel, because that is the major input to the forging industry. And that's the reason I'm asking steel. Otherwise, there is no love or hate for steel. But when we are talking about steel, and there are two different steels, which is a carbon steel and alloy steel. Okay. Now the carbon steel pricing typically, and I'm talking about I'm not talking a particular JSW or X steel mill or Y steel mill. Overall pricing of the carbon steel pricing is X by the forging steel producers, and RNL price is about 10 to 12 rupees cheaper than that. Now, basic cost of steel, when we talk about adding the alloying elements and arrive at the alloy steel pricing, it has to be carbon steel plus 1, plus 2, plus 3, plus 5, plus 6, some formula. Why this is not getting applicable when we talk about the alloy steel pricing?
Shekhar ji, you might not be knowing, I had worked with RNL for 15 years.
Okay.
I started my career with RNL. Nobody knows
Okay.
RNL better than me.
Yeah, I know.
You see, the problem with that is a PSU. First of all, it's a government of India company.
Yeah.
Please understand. It goes into loss. Had it been some other private sector steel company, that would have been closed down, the kind of losses they make.
Yeah.
Because they do not recover their cost of production. They sell cheap. That is the problem. That is, they are not able to recover. I'll tell you one thing. You know, every time government is infusing money, now also they have infused 11,000 crore. The moment they have infused 11,000 crores, today again they are selling cheaper by 6 to 7 rupees in the market, carbon steel. Their prices are low. Everybody is facing because it is a high cost plant. You look at the plant structure. The plant is located at a place where there is no coal, there is no iron ore. Everything comes from outside. The cost of production of RNL is fairly high. Point number one. The employee cost is fairly high. Their balance sheet is in red because they do not make money on what they sell. That is the problem. So that cannot be a benchmark. RNL cannot be a benchmark.
No benchmark. I am just asking. My question was different. Like if you see this so-called special steel, because in RNL's terminology, that special steel means the carbon steel. Now, what happens is, apart from their, the H-beams and I-beams and steel, their special steel production of their total turnover will not be more than 2%.
They don't make a specialist. Please understand. Please understand by saying that your C35 carbon round is a special steel round does not make it a special steel.
And I am not telling it is not a special. They call it special.
They call it special because they have their own way of, they have their own nomenclature, their own way of defining the things.
Forget about the terminology. I am talking about that 2% of the production. What stops them from increasing that price? Because on 90% of the things they can have one price, whether they make losses or profit or bumping profit, whatever. Then what stops them when they know that their price is about 10 to 12 rupees less as compared to the industry? What stops them from increasing the price of that 2% or 1%?
Their dynamics is. I will answer your question in a very different way.
Okay.
But that you'll get your answer. I joined the steel industry in May 93. And if I am not wrong, it was decontrolled in 91, January 91 or January 92.
Yeah, 91,
it was
92.
decontrolled by Dr. Manmohan Singh.
Yes.
Correct.
So,
Yes.
And if you remember, I have seen those days, even when I joined, the steel was sold at a premium.
Yes.
The steel was sold at a premium.
Yes.
Yeah.
In front of branch manager of SAIL and Tata Steel, there used to be a long queue, and if somebody used to get a 10-ton DO, तो उसका दिन बन जाता था क्योंकि मार्जिन होता था, उसने कुछ नहीं करना था, नीचे जाकर डीओ इंडस्ट्री वाले को बेच देना था. एक 10 टन का वायर रॉड का डीओ बन गया, दिन भर की कमाई हो गई. सब लोग लेते थे. Then came a time when that premium started decreasing, going down. Prices नीचे आने लगे. Problem. I was a junior manager. 6 महीने पुराना था, धंधे को समझ रहा था, बिजनेस को, पब्लिक सेक्टर में मिल गई थी नौकरी. तो मैं ब्रांच मैनेजर के साथ बैठा हुआ था. And I was little worried as a youngster. I asked him, sir, and branch manager used to be like God. Branch manager of a steel company used to be like God. So I asked him, sir, प्राइस कर रही हैं, कैसे होगा, सब चला गया. फिर मतलब विवेक चिंता मत कर, पहले प्रीमियम पे बिकता था, अब डिस्काउंट पे बिकेगा, माल तो बिकेगा. Now that answers your question. They know at what is the margin. They sell at that price because there are other things involved. They are very well aware of it.
Last chance. Yeah.
Yeah, I cannot disclose, but I had worked in that environment. I know how much, what is the price of a branch manager here, and I know what is the price of a regional manager here. Was. They cannot, RNL cannot make profit. Please understand. You may do whatever. Even Philip Kotler comes and becomes the CMD of that company. It will
Yeah.
never, it's a political plant.
Okay,
It
anyway,
is,
now, sir, we have with us Mr. Udayan Pathak. Udayan, thanks for joining. I know you had some domestic emergency, and still he has joined. So we were discussing about the forgings being exported to US, and the forgings now that business is under threat, and now we feel that even the domestic forging business will be affected by Chinese imports. How would I would say auto industry look at this?
Okay, first of all, am I audible?
Yes,
Yeah,
yes,
yeah.
we can
Good.
hear you, but we cannot see you.
Okay, yeah. There's some problem in the connection.
Anyway,
So,
you can continue.
okay.
Yeah,
I think now you can see me.
yes.
Yeah.
Please
So actually the problem with automotive industry, if you really look at, uh, today it is passing through a very big turmoil. Okay. And when we say it's passing through a turmoil, it's not only the cost. Earlier, the cost was the issue, and most of the challenges were related to the costing and all those kind of stuff. But this time, interestingly, it is the technology which is becoming a disruptive technology, and it is coming into the picture, sort of thing. Uh, Automotive industry itself probably is not sure how we are going to way ahead. Because with the EV on one side and with the fuel cell on the other side, a lot of disruptive changes are expected in automotive industry, and nobody is sure as to what is going to be the final outcome of this. So under these circumstances, if you look at, there's a good opportunity for forging industry. It's not the conventional forging industry which can survive. That's, let me be sure. Because whatever the conventional cost reductions possible, practically everyone has done. Whatever the designers have considered, the different materials, which is the low cost material, that has been given all the options and chances. Then the design itself was updated to a sort of what you can say is optimizing the stocks, etc. So now what is coming is everything is being finalized, and the designer, what it looks at is a certain strength and certain life. When I say strength, I'm not saying the conventional monotonic properties, either UTS or impact or something like that. I'm mostly speaking about the LCF and HCF, low cycle fatigue and high cycle fatigue, and which is mostly governed by the basic raw material and the heat treatment. That part has been optimized. But now, if forging industry look into some kind of value proposition, like for example, there are certain forging processes wherein the hollow forging is possible. Then second is the certain ring rolling sort of things are there. Then there's a some of the what you can say proprietary processes from the German companies wherein these splines, etc., can internal, external, both splines can be done using the forging techniques, etc. So it's not only giving the final size, but it also helps in improving the mechanical properties of that particular part in terms of the life. Again, let me remind, it's not that only the hardness or tensile or impact that matters, but it is the low cycle fatigue and high cycle fatigue. And such technologies will have definitely a major role to play in near future. Conventional hot die forging, एक डाई लगा दिया, एक फर्नेस लगा दिया, चार ठोके मार के जॉब दे दिया. Probably that kind of forge shop may not be able to survive, but the people who will go for the higher end applications in the forging industry can definitely survive. Number one. Number two, though it's not the direct contribution from the forging industry, but forging industry and steel together, they can think of how the benefit of improved steel making process can be utilized as a technology. When I started my career, probably 10:1 or 8:1 reduction ratio was considered as the ideal for applications like crankshaft. Okay, today people are talking about 3:1. Basically, if you consider from the designer's perspective, what is the role of reduction ratio? What the designer is looking for is how the core is stronger and integrated. So with the improvement in the steel technology, the lower reduction ratios are possible, but for that forging industry has to gear up. They have to demonstrate that. I remember I was working with one of the very big forging company, and there we fought with many OEMs to reduce the reduction ratio, which was from 10:1 to current 6:1 ratio, and somehow it is stabilized at 6:1. But even there is a possibility that we can go right up to 3:1 because steel making has improved and that supports the forging. So it's a kind of collaborative work between the steel industry and forging industry that can together support. Because all other options like, for example, from the alloy steel, we have migrated as a designer. We have migrated to carbon manganese steel, wherever possible, only carbon steel, etc. From the heat treatment, we have migrated to microalloy steel with the controlled cooling, wherever possible. So all those options have been worked out. The only some of the processes, like for example, the controlled cooling after forging, even in the 8620 or 20 mm and 16 mm are being explored. And in my previous organization, it helped us to reduce that cost. So such kind of innovative ideas, again, because very clearly we applied a simple logic. What is normalizing? The name itself suggests there is something abnormal that needs to be made normal. So what was that abnormality? So when we have studied that what is the abnormality, we realized that after piercing or after removing the flashes, etc., these forgings, they are kept like onion or potatoes or something like that in the heaps. So then we started putting them in the controlled channel, controlled cool channel, and we realized that we can even eliminate the normalizing, provided the banding was right in the previous stage and there was no overheating. So such kind of options are possible, and in fact, automotive industry is looking for expertise from the forging industry to support such ideas. So with that, over to you, Mr. Chandekar.
Thank you, Mr. Udayan. Now it is hardly any time left, so I would ask everybody for their last comments. We have discussed about the forging domestic consumption. We have discussed about the prospects of exports being hampered by the Trump tariff thing. We have discussed about the threat from China in terms of imports of forgings and even steel. And now we have a perspective from auto sector. Mr. Udayan could make it for the final few minutes. Now I want to ask you the final. What will be your closing comment as far as the forging industry is concerned? How do you look at the future of forging industry? Starting with Mr. Vivek Gupta.
Chandekar ji, look.
Short, please, sir. Very short answer.
Yeah, short. Future
2-3
is good.
minutes.
No,
2-3 minutes.
you see, how much time do I have? 2 minutes? 3 minutes?
3 minutes.
3 minutes, okay. So you see, the future is good. Please understand, there is no problem with the future. These are difficult times, I would say. It is not that there is no light at the end of the tunnel. Just look at this. What can be the length of these bad days? Maximum 3 years. No?
Yeah.
It will go away in 4 years. No? Last 1 year, nothing great is going to happen because the election mode will come.
Yeah.
So we have to pass for 3 years. that is the worst case scenario, the industry, the global industry, I would say, that fighting the tariffs and all those things. And then the situation will again change. And moreover, I don't think he is also, you leave aside the President Trump as such, then he has got his own team of economists and everything. Once they look at the cost of all these tariff barriers which are coming indirectly on the American population, they may have a rethink, they may tone it down, they may dilute it, something will come out of it. So as we speak today, the whole thought process and atmosphere is very pessimistic. But coming days, the situation should stabilize. After 90 days, let us see what happens, to what extent. There will be some trade deals. We may reduce, government is also very aware of the whole situation. And with what we can bank upon is the personal rapport of Prime Minister Modi and President Trump. They may be able to forge out some situation out of this. The India may reduce some tariffs for the American goods and in turn may be able to negotiate a deal. We don't know what is happening behind the door.
Yes.
So situation is going to be tough, but good times will come back. The bad times don't last forever.
So you are hopeful.
I'm an optimistic fellow.
Mr. Shekhar?
Like first thing I just wanted to tell Mr. Udayan, who came late slightly. Hi, Udayan.
Hi.
Means the point is well taken. What you have said, that the people have to go for the technology upgradation and have this, whether it is just plain cutting thing or the whole of forging, well taken. And people are going in that direction also. Now there are two things. One is of course that affordability, and secondly the type of products what can be made with those type of technology. Those have got limitations. When we are talking about the industry, we are talking about the majority of the products, which neither can be made through the splined forgings nor can be with the hollow forging, a general forging components. Now, the affordability part, why I'm taking a side of the forging industry, because I don't know how many people know that right start from 2012, in last 13 years, there is no conversion increase given by any of the customers to the forging industry. When we take about the conversion increase, it is all other cost increases apart from steel. So steel is taken because they always finalize directly with the steel manufacturers, and the back-to-back things are given to us. That is taken from one pocket and given to the other pocket. So forging industry has been doing all the VA/VE things only for the last 13, 14 years and surviving. I'm not saying that they're not surviving. Again, I'm not saying that the technological upgradation should stop. That is an ongoing process and it will continue. But when the margins are at stake and when there is not much of a support coming in from the customers, it is very, very difficult to have investments done in these areas. For the major, again, I'm talking on the majority of the forgers. If we feel that those 70-80% of the medium and small forgers, they deserve to die, it is a different story. But this is the fact. With things this taken also, what we need to do as an industry is that implement on the industry 4.0, have the skill development at all the levels of hierarchy, have low cost automation, have some sort of a AI or a generative AI adaptation, and scaling up of the operations either by mergers or acquisitions. That is what we are doing. On the government side, of course, like what Vivek was telling, that we request them for the cost of finance if it can be reduced by the banks. PLI schemes are already there. So this is coming from the government side. For the export incentives, what they can give it, we have to consider with some sort of FTS, BTS, what they are doing. So simultaneously with the government support and industry, what actions they have to take. I think this all days will pass, whether it is 3 months, 3 quarters, 3 years, that is anybody's guess. But I have been also optimistic, and I always feel that it is the present tense, future perfect.
Okay, great. Thank you very much, Mr. Shekhar. Now, Mr. Javalekar. Sunil ji.
Yeah. Towing the line of all the three speakers, what they said, I would certainly be optimistic, no doubt about it. But looking at the theme today, the forging industry, looking at it the way forward, I think the need of the hour is to sustain. And for that, I think the forging industry must be able to upgrade themselves, innovate, and then sustain. I think there are a lot of areas where really we need to work. And I think with the continual improvement, having all these three in place, as Shekhar said, that sustaining to have a good sustenance, the solar form of energy is there where people need to opt for it. I see a very little awareness was there 2 years back, but now a lot of energy intensive units are really going for that, as we have done. And I think that is the way forward I look ahead. So let's keep the hopes live. Thank you.
Sunilji, I have some spare money around 50 crores.
Sorry?
I have some spare money around 50 crores. Should I invest in forging industry?
Why not? As I said in my first opening remark, forging, if there is a capacity, you have a future in it.
Good, good. So our last panelist, Mr. Udayan Pathak, your last comment, sir.
Yeah. Actually, as I said, the automotive industry is going through really a technological uncertainty. Really, we don't know how the IC engines per future is going to be, because almost all governments across the world seems to be committed for driving IC engines out. The only option that may come out is if the hydrogen fuel, which can survive the current technology, at least the major part of the forgings can be continued. But again, there are challenges in hydrogen, as you know, the storing and particularly high pressure storage of the hydrogen is a big challenge, and automotive industry is trying. In fact, government is also serious to the extent that many government labs have been opened to automotive industry for working collaboratively. In fact, to the extent that ISRO has worked with many automotive OEMs in non-competitive areas, still the technology development is there, and government is also trying to see that this change is as less painful as possible. But again, from when we moved from the industry 1 to industry 2, that is from the external engines, external combustion engine to internal combustion engine, it was a whole disruptive technology. At one point of time, people were talking about gunmetal, brass, and all those kind of materials. And today, probably the new generation metallurgists may not be aware about what are these subjects, what are these materials. So likewise, we are at the really a junction where we don't know what is going to be the final path. And with that uncertainty, to survive is just to make the ourselves updated in the technology. I think that's the only challenge, and that's the only way to come out of the challenge. And I think technology has almost whatever the options we are exploring, all those options are almost technologically proven. So it's only the government policy decisions and economics which will drive this decision. That is my final comment.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Udayan. So that brings us to the end of this very absorbing discussion. And as I mentioned earlier, we discussed about the Trump regime, and we discussed about the export prospects, import threats from China. We discussed about domestic consumption-driven industry. We discussed about the forging industry being sandwiched between two giants. And so it was very interesting.
Even giants are also sandwiched, Chandekar.
I can understand. So it was a very absorbing discussion, and I thank all the panelists, Mr. Vivek Gupta, Mr. Sunil Javalekar, Mr. Shekhar Dongade, and Mr. Udayan Pathak for your insightful contribution in this very interesting discussion. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you. Thank you, Mr.
And that brings us to the end of this session, and that brings us to the end of the today's deliberations, and that brings us to the end of 14th Special Steels Convention. I thank everybody for being with us. We had very absorbing discussion in the morning. Two sessions. One was inauguration session. One was panel discussion about steel, about various aspects of steel processing, including green steel and including the processing of steel. Then in the second post lunch, we had very informative presentations from the technologist, Mr. from EICS Technology, from Dr. A.K. Mahapatra gave a very good presentation. Then Mr. Vishwa Bandhu gave a good presentation. And then lastly, we had this very absorbing discussion, second panel discussion, which we introduced this time. And thank you very much, all the panelists, and thank you, all the participants. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you,
Yes.
everyone. Goodbye.